it is I, Showdown, the spookiest cosplayer, maybe. Welcome to a Halloween edition of Get Ready With Me. I'll be putting on my American McGee's Alice cosplay while telling horrible stories from my past dating life. Spooky. Okay, get ready for an abrupt transition to a much different looking woman. Get settled in, this is gonna take a while, it's gonna be messy, and I'm not talking about the makeup. So I'm gonna try to tell these stories mostly in chronological order. I'm not gonna talk about my makeup that much while I'm doing it. I'll do it a little bit here and there, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll put my product list down there too. Mostly I know my audience isn't really here for that. They're more interested in hearing about the people who have gone on dates with me. I guess we'll start in middle school. The first story I want to tell is not about my first relationship. I mean, I guess technically it is, depending on how you define it. I had an online boyfriend when I was 11 until I was like 12. I tend to count him as my first relationship because we were online boyfriend and girlfriend for like 2 years, which is a big deal when you're that young. And also just because I would hate to think that the first person that I dated in real life is my first relationship. I didn't really actually know him and we didn't really actually go out. I knew him from school technically because when I was in middle school, my friends and I would all like after school would just like hang out at these like picnic tables in the schoolyard, and it was next to this park, and this kid would come and just like hang out around the park, and occasionally we'd see him, we'd say hi. You know, he was like older, so he was like cool, and we found out that he had been expelled from his high school, which was like, ooh, mysterious, cool, foreshadowing. Though I don't know if he told us why he was expelled. Turns out he was expelled for stalking a girl, which, yeah, you can tell this is gonna be a great scary story. He didn't even like, it wasn't even like, oh, like he's like really interested in me. Like, no, he went through all of my friends first, and keep in mind that this kid is like 15 and I'm like 12. It was not okay. And, none of them were having it. They were not into it. And then finally he like, I don't even remember how it happened. I think we were just like all hanging out at my house, and then like somehow we ended up kind of cuddling, and he was like, oh, like I really like you, will you be my girlfriend? And I'm like 12. It's like literally I am 12, what is this? I was like, sure, I guess. And he was just like, yay. So then I guess, then like my friends were just like melding me, like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, I don't know, I'm 12 and I have no self-esteem. When a boy is interested in me, I kind of don't care if he has a huge head and he's really creepy. I guess I was technically his girlfriend because I agreed to it for like a week. And we did not spend any time together for that entire week. And at the end of it, I had a bunch of my friends over, and we were in my pool because I grew up in a house with a pool, and we were like, you know, swimming and hanging out. My friends are in their bikinis, and he shows up just like in my backyard. And all my friends start like screaming and covering themselves up, and I was just like, well, what are you doing here? And also, I don't want to be your girlfriend. And he like cried in my backyard for like 2 hours. Yeah, that was really embarrassing, and my friends like never let me live it down. They were always doing impressions of him crying in my backyard. So anyway, I guess if you're going by real life only, then that was technically my first boyfriend. And after that whole incident with him crying in my backyard, he stalked me, you know, of course. And then like, oh my god, years later when I did my like brief stint in community college, I ran into him there, and he looked much worse, and obviously had not grown or matured at all in that time. Sorry, my cat's chasing something around the room. Tia, stop it! He like was like, oh my god, Showdown, I haven't seen you in forever, how you doing, blah blah blah. And at first I was like, oh yeah, you know, maybe he's different, maybe he's got, no, it's the same. And I ended up having to do that whole thing where you pretend like you got a phone call to get him to go away, and it didn't even work. Like, I was walking and I was like pretending like I was on the phone, like, oh yeah, I'll be right there, blah blah blah, can't wait to see you, blah blah blah. And he's just like walking alongside me, just like waiting for me to finish the call, and was like, fucking out of here, kid, like that's not how this works. After that I dated my first like real boyfriend, who was he was alright, you know, he was a cute kid and he liked me and I liked him, so we did okay for about a year or so, and then I don't know, just kind of broke up and moved on, so it goes. So jump ahead in time, because like I don't really want to, the rest of my teenage years were like I don't know, those stories are not really like funny or fun to tell, and like some of them will be, I'm gonna do like a bad hookup stories video at some point later if there's enough interest. So I'll save a lot of those for that video. So skip ahead to me being 18 years old. Oh, I found the eyeshadow I was looking for, yay. I joined OkCupid, my first online dating, I guess my only online dating profile, where I met, God, so many people. I was on there until I met Mr., my now fiance, until when I was 23. And so that was 5 years? Yeah, 5 years of using that website very, very heavily. And I was like using it in San Francisco around the time of the like second big tech boom. So there were so many nerd boys for me to have. Oh my God, so many. And I did. But before that, I was using it when I was still in my hometown, which meant that mostly all I got was like townies posing with fish and cars and all that, which good for you if that's your thing, but not mine at all. But I was very interested in meeting women because I had never really dated women before. Like I'd mostly just like had experiences with people who I considered friends and not really like romantic anything. Sorry, I keep covering up my face with my hand, by the way. That's just kind of how I do my makeup. So I was especially interested in girls, and I met this one girl who, like, I don't know, I think she might have messaged me first, like, and I was like, oh, she's kind of cute. She's into art, which I was more at the time. And she's into, like, you know, anime and nerdy stuff like I am too, so that's cool. So, like, yeah, I'll go on a date with her. And we meet up at a coffee shop, and, like, right away I'm like, this girl is dressed like a toddler. We sat down, like, I got a cup of coffee, and, like, we sat down, and I talked, and she stared at me like that for basically the whole time. And I don't even remember really what we talked about. I was just kind of like, yeah, I went to high school and I did a lot of art, and now here I am. Like, that was the extent of my life at that point. What the fuck do you even talk about when you're that young? But she was just like, wow, okay. And like, that was like basically all she would say was just kind of like, wow, yeah, like affirmatives and everything. Also, she was, I mean, like, my posture's always been real bad, but she was like the whole time. And afterward, I was just kind of like, okay, well, had a date, did the date thing, all right, I'm gonna go home now and probably never talk to her again. And like a couple days go by and she sends me a message. She's like, hey, like, do you want to go out again? And I was like, do you? Like, no, I don't. Like, I thought we didn't really hit it off. Like, I thought that would be a mutual thing. And she was just like, oh no, I thought we were really connected. I was just like, never spoke to her again. Basically just like tried to let her down as gently as possible. But I was like genuinely surprised that she wanted to see me again. Story of my fucking life, honestly. But God, the first date I had after I broke up with a guy who was super abusive when I was 19, that like really fucked me up. I met up with this guy from OkCupid. It like took me a long time to feel like I was ready to like jump back into it and start seeing people again. And I go out with this guy, and I show up, and the first thing he says is like, wow, you have really bad posture. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I know. Like, I feel like at the time I thought the date went fairly well. But he also just seemed like kind of aloof, and like he wasn't really that interested. And like probably was like kind of, I mean, people are gonna get mad at me for saying this word, but like mansplaining to me about, because all I wanted to talk about at that point in my life was art, basically. And like he had like an Aubrey Beardsley patch on his jacket, and I was like, oh, that's super cool, the whole like Aubrey Beardsley blah blah. And he's like, oh yeah, you know about blah blah. Well, he took his inspiration from blah blah, and he kicked off the blah blah movement. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I went to school and I'm studying art. Like I know. Which, God, that's happened to me so many fucking times over the years. Like, it's crazy how a lot of the time, like, you'll be talking to a guy about something that you know, and saying like facts and stuff like that, and being like, oh, and then this happened, and then this happened, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, and then just like repeat everything you just said back to you, basically, but as if you didn't know. But anyway, this guy with the Aubrey Beardsley and the saying my posture was bad and everything. Go home, and I get a text from him the next day that says like, oh, you gonna wear some makeup the next time we go out? And if that happened to me now, I'd be like, ha, next time? Like, get fucked, man. Like, that's, no, never again. But at the time, being young and having no self-esteem, I was like, haha, I guess, sure. And we continue to text, you know, throughout the week or so. And at that point in my life, the only way that I knew how to get romantic attention was to give sexual attention. So I would be like really like crass and just be like, oh, blah, 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 dicks, blah, 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 vagina, blah, 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 we're gonna do it, blah, blah. And he was just kind of like, okay, settle down, child. You don't gotta worry about laying it down, because whatever it is, I am definitely not picking it up. I was just kind of like, all right, well, whatever. I'm still getting attention from a cute boy, so I guess I'll just keep talking to him. And he invited me over to his house to watch a movie. And I get there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I drove there. It was like a 45-minute drive. I don't know, like the place looked nice. He like made fresh baked cookies, which I was like, holy shit, fucking cookies. I will eat all of them right now. And we sit down and we watch the movie, and we're like kind of snuggling. At the end of it, he's like, so are you gonna stay over? And I'm like, I live with my parents. I can't just like stay over without planning on it. Like, you told me you didn't want to sleep with me, so I didn't plan on staying over. Like, I can't just like be out all night. They'd fucking call the cops. And he's like, oh, well, I thought blah, 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 like being like a real dick about it. And I was like, and like literally the day after, I'm like, you like said straight, like, I don't want to sleep with you. So I was like, you just can't just like do that and then be like, oh, actually, I was just playing hard to get. Like, that's just fucking dumb. If you want to play hard to get or like have there be a chase to it, you can do that without like being deceitful and being a dick about it, you know? God, that fucking guy. Wherever you are now, you weird man, weird white man with dreadlocks, I hope you grew up and learned, because I did, and I hope that most people do. I guess after that was when I like moved out and I started art school and I like had my own kind of, well, not my own apartment. I moved, oh God. Yeah, I moved in with this guy that I met at OkCupid. Not like in a like, oh, I'm dating and I'm moving in kind of way, but then I'm like, and like a like, oh, we're friends and like he has a room open kind of thing. Like we had been friends on Facebook and everything, and like just because we met through OkCupid, but then we're like, oh, I guess we're not really compatible. He was like, yeah, you're too young for me. It's like, okay, that's cool. But he had a room open and I needed a room, so I moved in with him and his partner and their partner who lived in the other room because they were polyamorous. Of course, it's fucking Bay Area and they're everybody's fucking polyamorous. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not personally my thing, and I found it kind of frustrating to try to date when everybody was into that and I wasn't. I lived there for about 3 years with him, and his wife, his partner that became his wife eventually left, and that was when he started to get like not okay. Like, not on a like he did anything kind of way, but he like offered to sleep with me, and I was just kind of like, no, I don't want to, I thought that I was too young for you, like, why are you suddenly doing this now? And he's like, oh, well, you're 21 now, and so therefore you're of age. And I'm like, there's been no change in the age whatever, man, either way, not interested. And he was like, oh yeah, fine, that's okay, but it was clearly like not okay. Every time I had a guy over, which was pretty regularly at that point in my life, he would like wander by and like look in my door like trying to get a look at whoever it was to be like, why him and not me? And like especially with Mr., because this guy was really tall, but Mr. was like taller than him, so he was especially threatened by him, I guess. Like one time Mr. was over and he was like making us lunch or something in the kitchen, and this guy just comes out of his room and he's like got his fly down and he just starts like puttering around the kitchen for no reason. Like he's clearly not doing anything. He's just like getting close to Mr. and being like, oh, excuse me, like bumping into him and stuff, and Mr.'s just kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I don't care about this guy. I don't know why he's doing this. Like, what the fuck? Wow, I have newfound respect for beauty bloggers. It's actually really hard to do your makeup while talking, especially for me because I'm not very good at talking, but here I am on YouTube doing talking. Okay, so the real challenge is going to be, can I do liquid liner without being way up close to the thing and while talking? Okay, just bear with me. Oh god. I think I'm doing it, I think. Okay, what? Nope, nope, that looks bad. Oh shit. Okay, so after my room, oh god, I forgot to mention my roommate fucking died. I can't help but like punctuate any story about how awful he was with like, yeah, but then he died, which is terrible because he was very young and it was very sad, but yeah, he died, so oops. And another tech boy I went on a date with, he wasn't that boring, he was kind of cool, he was like alternative and he had like cool hair and stuff. He was like, yeah, let's go like bar crawling in the Tenderloin, and I was like, oh, that's cool, I've never like really hung out there that much before. And like, if you don't know, like in San Francisco, Tenderloin is like a traditionally, it's almost like it was like walled off and they were like, keep all the crime and the drugs and the prostitution and everything there and like give us the rest of the city to gentrify. We were like, yeah, let's like start at this one place. So we meet at this place that's like a whiskey bar and it was super cool. And like at this point in my life, I didn't like beer. Like the only thing I drank was like cocktails, like whiskey, like Jack and Coke or something was like my favorite drink. He shows up and like we're like having a good time at this first bar and he gets like a beer or something and then we're like, okay, let's like move on to the next bar. So we go to the next bar and I sit down and I order something and I'm like, what are you getting? He's like, oh, I'm good. And I'm like, it's like 8 p.m. Like we just got started. You wanted to go like fucking bar crawling and like you're not gonna drink anymore? He's like, no, I have to work tomorrow, so I'm just gonna have the one beer. And I'm just kind of like, but if we're gonna go to a bunch of bars, like I don't want to like not order stuff, just like be sitting there taking up space on a fucking Saturday, because you know, me being a customer service person, I know that that's like not a thing that you do. I proceed to get fucking plastered as we're wandering around the Tenderloin because I don't like beer or wine, so I'm just having like cocktails, and by the end of the evening I'd probably had like 4 drinks at 4 different bars. Don't worry, the story doesn't end with him like, you know, taking advantage of me because I was so drunk. So at the end of the night, we like get in a taxi and like I get dropped off at my house and we say the most awkward goodbye I think I've ever had, where we were like, are we gonna kiss or we and then he just kind of like ruffled my hair and then I got out and I went upstairs to my apartment and I was just like, what the fuck just happened? Oh god, probably the worst date I've ever been on, and like not like it wasn't really like a hilariously terrible date, it just like was in a way where this was all very much happening inside my head and this guy was like probably perfectly nice, he just was not what I was looking for at all. But like he hits me up on OkCupid and he's got pictures of himself up both with and without a beard. And one thing about me is that I fucking hate facial hair. Like you have it, fine, great. I'm not making out with you, I'm not having sex with you, I don't care. But if there's a chance that I'm gonna make out with you or have sex with you, I just want, keep it 1,000 feet away from me, please. Just like not at all what I'm going for. Funnily enough, I met Mr. a year after he messaged me for the first time when I had not responded because he had a beard when he first messaged me, and I didn't even remember that he was the same guy, naturally. But anyway, I decided to roll the dice on this kid. I say kid, he was probably the same age as me. Meet up with him at a bar, and I walk in, and I look, he's got a fucking beard, and I'm just immediately like, oh, well, I guess I'll get a couple free drinks out of the night or whatever, and maybe he'll have some fun conversation. Because I was like genuinely open to like making friends, and I kind of wish that I could still do that just to like meet new people, because it's really hard to meet new fucking people when you're an adult. I noticed what he was wearing because I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm like particular about the way that people dress when I'm gonna be involved with them, but like I definitely care a lot about that and like presentation in general. Like a lot of people don't even really consider how they look, if that makes sense. Like I know it sounds dumb, but like a lot of people have just been like wearing the same clothes and the same shoes and the same style for like all their life, and they just like never even really think about it, which I'm not about. Take your cargo shorts and throw them into the sea. Like just get some nice jeans. They're really not even that expensive if you know where to look. Like it's really, I don't ask a lot. Anyway, this guy was wearing a short sleeve button down shirt with a tie and like chinos or something with running shoes, and I was just like nothing makes me like my vagina drier than running shoes. Just ugh. And then he starts talking and he's like like, one of the things we had, like, talked about initially when we were talking online is, like, kink, because I was, like, really into that at that point. I don't know, I feel like this is, like, crazy, but I swear he was, like, putting on some kind of, like, voice, like he was trying to sound seductive or something. Like, I'd say, like, oh yeah, well, what do you do for fun? He's just like, oh, well, I do blah 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 and do-da-do-da-da. And I was just kind of like, is this just how you talk? Do you think you sound normal? Because you do not sound normal, my dude. And again, proceeded to get completely drunk because I just was not into this guy and didn't really know what else to do. So just got very, very drunk and then was like, okay, bye, nice to have met you. Please never contact me again. So there's this thing that happens to me a lot, and it used to, and it still does, though in different capacities now, where I talk very frankly about sex and sexuality and my experiences and my body and the things that I think about sex. And people who are not used to that take that as like oh, she's trying to fuck, which is like not at all what I'm going for. Like, it's just kind of like, I've always been really comfortable talking about sex, and even now that I do it in a much less attention-seeking kind of way like I did when I was younger, I still just like talk about it and people take it as like, oh yes, this woman needs my dick specifically right now, which is literally never what I want. There will never be a time when I'm putting out an open call for dick auditions, okay? Like, never, ever, 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 ever. Even you. Like, I know what you're thinking. No, not even you. I don't care how special you are. No. That being said, one of the worst instances of this, instances of this was I went on this date with this guy who and like, I know I've been around long enough to know fucking A. There goes all my products. I have been around long enough to know what like tricks those pickup artist people teach each other that never work. They do not work. Like, you think they might, and no, they don't. They don't and they won't. And one of them is that you should like make contact early and often. So like, you know, like this guy was like putting his hand like around my waist at the bar, which I was just kind of like, But yeah, he was like putting his hand on my waist and like, you know, like lean over and get like real close to me, and I'm just kind of like, okay, like slow your roll there, bud. Definitely did the thing where like we're having a conversation, like we're talking about blah blah. He told me about going to Japan and visiting sex shops where they sell non-consensual pornography, which I was like, that's a interesting thing to talk to somebody about on a first date that you're ostensibly trying to have sex with. Like, yeah, of course I'm a freaky sex pervert also, but like I'm very much not into anything non-consensual, no thank you. But then like, you know, I'm doing that thing where I'm just like, yeah, my vagina, blah blah blah, the sex that I have, you know, it's a thing, and blah blah blah, it's a thing that I do a lot, and then blah blah blah. He's just like, yes, interesting. And then he just puts his tongue down my throat. Like, just like, he goes, actually, and then just blah, 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 and I'm just kind of like, what's happening? I don't know if I want this. And I just kind of, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ready for that right now. He's just kind of like, okay. So we just go back to our conversation, and I'm just kind of like, what? That's not, like, yeah, sometimes that happens on a date where there's like a break in a conversation, you're like, yeah, then you go for it, but that's not what happened. He just, like, I was in the middle of a sentence, he just goes, blah, 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 blah. I mean, not literally, it was more like a, bleh. But, if you're ever on a date with somebody and they open their mouth and go, bah, then probably run. Then, you know, date comes to a natural end where I'm like, okay, I better go, I got, like, class in the morning, and he's like, yeah, okay. He, like, walks me back to the train station where I'm like about to catch my my train, and tries to kiss me again. I'm just like, no, and I just kind of like deflect it into a hug, just very chaste. If there might have even been a pat on the back. I can't remember if I initiated, but I like, or if he texted me and I was just like, yo dude, like, kind of not okay, you like put your tongue down my throat when it was like very much not called for, and like it made me really uncomfortable. He was like, oh my god, I had no idea, I'm so sorry. And I was like, yeah, man, like, you can't just, like, assume shit like that. You know, you gotta like communicate and like talk and everything. Like that's kind of the whole point of what I was talking about. But hopefully he learned from that experience and didn't ever do anything like that again. Not like I didn't feel like I had been like assaulted or anything, but it was very much just kind of like, whoa, like out of nowhere. Okay, I'm just about done here. Thank you for bearing with me while I fucking blather at you for hours. So my next story is probably my most wild. There's just like a lot of twists and turns. I met this guy on OkCupid. I'm sorry, that's how all my stories start, but it's true. And like we had been talking for a little while, and he was like, wow, you're like so amazing, and I can't believe you're talking to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. Not in like a kind of way, but in a like, no, I really don't like being thought of that way. Please treat me like a real person. But he was cute, and I was kind of into him, and he told me that one of his hobbies was he bred spiders, which I was like, okay. I was like tarantulas or something? He's like, no, like jumping spiders. And I was like, wow, how many do you have? He's like, oh, I got like, 500. I was like, well, I'm literally never coming to your house, but thanks for the heads up, I guess. And I throw that in not because it's relevant to the date story, but just because it's fucking weird, because this story is fucking weird. One thing about me is that I gotta like solidify plans. Like if we're gonna go out, I gotta confirm ahead of time and day of that we're still on and we're doing the thing. So he had like been like, oh, I'm thinking of coming out to the goth club that you go to a lot. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be so cool. Like it would be cool to meet you there. And like, you can see some of my friends are really cool people and such and such and such. And then I don't hear from him for like a week or so. And I was like, okay, well, I guess he's not. I like messaged him day of, like being like, hey, are you still coming out? Are we still doing this thing? And when he didn't answer me, I was like, all right, well, I guess not. And like one of my other partners just like happened to show up at my work while I was closing, and so we were like gonna go out and spend the night together. And so we go to the club and we're just like hanging out. It's like super empty. There was like nobody there because it's a goth club and they're very unpopular. And then this person comes up to me and they say, hey! And I'm just kind of like, hi. He's like, it's me. And I'm like, oh, because they were dressed in women's clothing with like a wig and like a dress and like the whole bit. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay. And not on a like sissy kind of way, but just in a like, this is what they wear kind of way. And I was like, oh yeah, like nice to meet you. Like, yeah, it's good to meet you finally. Like we've been talking, blah, blah, blah. And they're giving me this look that I've gotten a lot where it's very clear that I'm their first hope of getting laid in who knows how long. Like just this look of just like hope and desperation and just like they're depending on me for this so much, and I can see it and I'm just like, oh shit. And I like introduced them to my partner, and I didn't want to be like, this is this other guy I'm fucking, but I was like, oh yeah, this is my friend and blah blah blah. And like, gonna wait for the opportune time to be like, hey, I didn't know you were gonna show up, so I like made other plans. There was just a lot going on, and I was just like really not prepared to see them, and they were just like really like kind of clinging on to me the whole evening. I don't know, like at some point I went to the bathroom, and when I came back they were just gone. Like they had just left. And my friends were like, yeah, they just like left without saying anything to any of us. And I was like, interesting, okay. And I went to like message them on OkCupid the next day, and their profile is gone. And then I get this email. And they were like, I'm sorry, like I thought this was gonna be a whole thing, and like I thought that we were gonna blah blah blah, and I thought blah blah blah, and I'm just like, I'm really lonely and I'm really sad and I haven't been with anybody for a really long time, and I blah blah, and I'm just reading it like, oh my god, like this is, okay, to be fair, this is not the first time I've gotten an email like this after a date or after an encounter with somebody, but I was just like, oh fucking hell, wow, there's a lot to unpack here, and like clearly this guy has some stuff that he needs to work through. And like he was like, oh, and I deleted my OkCupid after I met you because that experience, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my god, like I'm sorry, like I didn't realize this was gonna become such a fucking thing. I don't actually remember if I replied to the email or not, but I was just like, holy fucking shit. And to be clear, not at all a problem with the cross-dressing. Like that's totally fine. Like got friends who do it, like very, very totally fine. Not a thing I'm into, like in terms of sexual interest, just like very much not a thing that I like. Speaking of cross-dressing, I suppose I should talk about another cross-dresser that I was briefly involved with, who was a friend of a former boss that I met on like a business trip. We get to talking and we're like, he's like flirting a little bit and I'm like, okay, like I wasn't like super into you at the time, but I'll like flirt because I like attention, you know, that's how it goes. And he tells me like, oh, well, I like to cross-dress. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm not really into that. Like, full disclosure, that's like very much not my kink, but I'm glad that you have a thing that you like to explore and like it's very healthy and etc, etc. But he just like really tried to push this on me as like, oh, I want you to like dress me up and I want you to pick my clothes. And I'm just like, buddy, I keep telling you that I'm not into this. And it eventually got to the point where I was like, look, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, you're very much trying to force your fetish on me. That's like, I've told you I'm not into it, and the fact that you can't take no for an answer is just like a serious problem. And so I like cut it off, and then he just would not leave me alone for literal years. I got a friend request from him fucking recently on Facebook, and I was just like, are you fucking serious? It's been like 6 or 7 fucking years. Like, give it a fucking rest, man. Hey fellas, here's some free dating advice. Take no for a fucking answer. There is nothing that will make somebody want to turn and run faster than somebody arguing with you when you say no. Like, it's a complete sentence, it's a final answer. If I say no, I mean no. So the last story I want to tell is actually about my first date with Mr. Because it was not exactly like love at first sight, picture perfect moment. When I messaged him, he was like, oh, let's meet up like right now, like right away. And I was like, whoa, like, you know, like I'm used to like, we talk online or we text for like a couple weeks first. Like, you want to just like meet me? What the fuck? Are you a fucking serial killer? So he's like, yeah, let's meet at this bar on this day at this time. I was like, all right, cool. Not realizing that that day and that time was the early afternoon after Folsom Street Fair, which if you don't know is a huge leather fetish fair in San Francisco that I worked every year for 7 or 8 years, and it was like a huge party. And that particular year was definitely the wildest time I've ever had in my life. There was a lot that went on that day, and the next day I was like hungover and I was covered in bruises and like hadn't really slept that well, and so I just show up and I'm a fucking mess. And I sit down and I order a drink, and then he shows up and I realize I can't remember his name. He told me his name and I can't remember what it was. So I'm hoping that maybe it will come up organically in conversation, and it didn't. We sit down and I get my drink and I'm like, oh, are you gonna get something? He's like, oh no, I don't drink. And I'm just kind of like in a bar like, okay, whatever man, whatever. Conversation was a little awkward. He was also he was like smiling a lot, and he was kind of giving me like a little bit of that, and I was just kind of like, this is weird. He's got like long hair and he's wearing like a bolo tie with a denim shirt. Like, what is this guy's deal? We had a nice time. We eventually like got to talking, just like telling fun stories about life to each other, and like we talked about Folsom and we talked about kink a little bit. But I like went home from that day being like, that guy was pretty weird, but he was funny, so I guess give him another chance. And then he just started hanging around more, and like he would come hang out at work while I was working. And then we just like started spending more time together, and you know, a little while later made it official, and now we're gonna get fucking married. So isn't that cool? What a nice happy story, not scary at all. I'm almost done with my makeup here. I'm gonna finish the rest of it off screen and then come back for last looks. Hope you enjoyed these stories. Guess who forgot to record an outro? That's right, it's me! If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. You'll find my American McGee's Alice set Wonderland 50% off in my Gumroad store, and I have an Alice striptease video up on my OnlyFans right now. Make sure you check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/Shodan, and subscribe to my YouTube if you want me to make more videos.